Hi, and welcome to our kids service. We are so excited for you to see everything that we have for you. But before we do that, we're gonna need you to stand up, make some room, because we're gonna jump into some worship.
I'm not exactly sure that this is the right size. I'll make it work. Hello, drivers. I'm so glad you're here. This month, we're talking about integrity. We're finding out what matters most. And hint, it's not what's on the outside. It's what's on the inside that matters most. Integrity is choosing to be truthful in whatever we say or do. I mean, you could be an old, rundown car and give it a nice new paint job. But if you don't take care of what's on the inside, well, it's not gonna run well. And it's kind of like with our integrity. God can help us be truthful on the inside, so we'll live truthfully on the outside. Then we'll be driven to be who God made us to be, inside and out. But before we get into our Bible story, let's start with our big answer. And what is the big answer? It's the answer to the big question. This is the one you should get from that important adult in your life, and that is, what did you learn in Kids Church today? Our big answer for today is, do what's right wherever you are. And our memory verse for this series comes from the book of Proverbs. And it says, anyone who lives without blame walks safely, but anyone who takes a crooked path will get caught. That's Proverbs chapter 10, verse 9. Today, we're going to talk about a story from the book of Daniel, and it's about a man named, yep, you guessed it, Daniel. As we look back through God's big story, we see how God had a plan to bless the whole world through one family, the Israelites. But the Israelites, well, they kept turning from God. And it seemed like every good king who led the people to follow God's laws was followed by a foolish king who led the people to do terrible, wrong things. Then God's people were conquered by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And when the Babylonians invaded, they took treasures from God's temple. They also captured many of God's people and marched them across 500 miles of wild desert to Babylon. There, King Nebuchadnezzar gave orders to his chief official, Aspenaz. The king told him to bring some of the Israelites to serve him in his court. They needed to be strong, intelligent, handsome, and able to adapt to life in Babylon. 4 of these men were named Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Aspenaz, the official, was supposed to teach the Babylonian language and writings to these young men. They were to go through 3 years of training and eat food from their king's own table. Now, King Nebuchadnezzar was determined to control everything these men would think, say, and do as they served in his palace. The chief official also changed the names. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were now known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And Daniel was known as Belteshazzar. You know what? Let's just keep calling him Daniel. Daniel and his friends were given the same luxurious food and drink that the king himself ate. I mean, think of all the food, like a big buffet with so many great foods and so many great desserts. But here's the thing. God made it clear to Daniel that it was wrong for him and his friends to eat the king's food. The official worried that if Daniel and his friends didn't eat the king's food, then they would show up looking worse than the other men, and he thought he would get in trouble. But Daniel had a plan. He shared it with one of the guards. In Daniel chapter 1, verses 12 through 13, he says, "Please, test us for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat, and give us only water to drink. Then compare us to the young men who eat the king's food. See how they look. After that, do what you have to do." The guard agreed with Daniel's request, and for a week and a half, Daniel and his friends had nothing but vegetables. Okay. It's good. And they drank nothing but water. Yeah, it's great, yeah. At the end of the 10 days, Daniel and the others actually looked healthier than the other men who had eaten the royal food. Wow. In addition to the physical health, God gave Daniel and his friends knowledge and understanding. Daniel could even understand dreams and visions. After the 3 years of training had passed, the king examined the young men. He found that Daniel and his friends showed more wisdom and understanding than any of the others. King Nebuchadnezzar decided to give important jobs to Daniel and his friends, and they served him for many years. When the king asked Daniel and his friends for advice, he found it would be 10 times better than any of the other advisors. Wow. Think about it. Daniel and his friends were ripped away from everything they knew. Then they were in Babylon, and they're asked to do something that they knew wasn't right. And that must have been some serious pressure. But Daniel and his friends still chose to honor God. They had the integrity to do what was right, no matter what was happening around them. Now let's remember to live like Daniel and his friends did. We need to do what's right wherever we are. Now, you're probably not going to be asked to move to a foreign country and to serve a king. But as you go through the next few years of life, you will certainly face situations where you have to choose to do the right thing, even when your friends aren't. Like for example, maybe you're away from your home or your parents, and it can even be more tempting to do something that you know isn't right. Like maybe watching some videos on YouTube when your friends, you know that you shouldn't be watching this, and you know your parents blocked it. Or maybe you go along with a group when they're saying something mean about another person. I mean, it's hard to do the right thing, especially when you feel alone. But remember, that's when you follow Jesus, and God sends the Holy Spirit to be with you and help you. Anytime you're struggling to do the right thing, you can ask God to give you the strength and courage to do what you know you should. And that's just like our big answer says. Do what's right wherever you are. So Daniel and his men had more wisdom and more understanding because of drinking vegetables and water. I mean, I guess I can try it again. Oh, it's not good. It's not good. And the water's warm. Ugh. Hot water.
It's time for Memory Verse Breakdown!
Hey kids, today we're gonna break down this week's memory verse. Are you ready? Okay, here's this week's memory verse. You think you got it? Try saying it out loud. All right, let's take some words away. You think you still got it? Try saying it out loud again. All right, let's bring those words back and see how you did. Did you get it right? Awesome. Well, that's this week's memory verse breakdown. How'd you do?
Memory Verse Breakdown!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting game of Books of the Bible Survival. In this game, you must quickly decide between two books of the Bible. You can hold up one hand for book number 1 and 2 hands for book number 2. Choose carefully though. Select the correct book and you're still in the game. Select the wrong book and you can keep playing, but please take a seat. If you're still standing after all 10 questions, you will be crowned the ultimate Books of the Bible Survivor Champion! Once we start the survival challenge, you'll only have 5 seconds to answer each question. So everyone please stand up, do a big stretch, and let's begin! Which book is the first book of the Bible? Raise one hand for Genesis, raise 2 hands for Ruth. The answer is Genesis. Next question. Which book is the last book of the Bible? Raise 1 hand for Mark. Raise 2 hands for Revelation. The answer is Revelation. Question number 3. Which book is the first book in the New Testament? Raise one hand for Matthew. Raise 2 hands for Jonah. The answer is Matthew. Here's the next question. Which of these books is in the Old Testament? Raise one hand for Romans. Raise 2 hands for Proverbs. The answer is Proverbs. Well done. Now, which book is the second book in the Bible? Raise one hand for Daniel. Raise 2 hands for Exodus. The answer is Exodus. Next question. Which book is the second to last book in the Bible? Raise one hand for Luke. Raise 2 hands for Jude. The answer is Jude. Now, which book is the last book in the Old Testament? Raise one hand for Obadiah. Raise 2 hands for Malachi. The answer is Malachi. Moving on. Which book is part of the Gospels? Raise one hand for Luke. Raise 2 hands for Ephesians. The answer is Luke. You've almost made it to the end. Oh, which book tells the story of a den of hungry lions? Raise one hand for Jonah. Raise 2 hands for Daniel. The answer is Daniel. This is the final question. Which book is about a man who loses everything? Raise one hand for Nehemiah. Raise 2 hands for Job. The answer is Job. Amazing job to everyone who is still standing. You really know your books of the Bible, and you have earned the title of the ultimate Books of the Bible Survivor Champion.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Before you leave, have that important adult in your life go to lifechurchgreenbay.com/kids, where you can grab our Kids Connect card. There you can discuss our big answer, the memory verse, and even more. We love you so much. Have a great week.